The Quiet Revolution. The crystalline armada emerged from hyperspace like shards of broken glass catching starlight. Their ships, each a geometric impossibility of angles and surfaces that hurt to look at directly, formed perfect formations around Earth. From the largest dreadnought to the smallest scout vessel, they moved with the precision of a single mind, because that's exactly what they were, fragments of the great crystalline consciousness that had conquered 1,000 worlds. Ambassador Kizek's form shifted and refracted on the massive communication screen, his crystalline body a kaleidoscope of ever-changing patterns. His voice resonated through every frequency simultaneously, creating harmonics that made human teeth ache. Inhabitants of Earth, the transmission began, reaching every device capable of receiving signals across the planet. Your species has been evaluated. Your military capabilities are noted. Your nuclear weapons, quaint. Your space vessels, primitive. The crystalline empire offers you the honor of integration. You have 12 of your hours to surrender your sovereignty. Resistance will result in your planet's conversion to raw materials for our expansion. The message repeated in every major human language, accompanied by detailed schematics, showing how Earth would be systematically disassembled, its core harvested, its people either absorbed into the collective consciousness or eliminated as biological inefficiencies. What followed wasn't panic. It wasn't the mass mobilization of military forces. It wasn't even diplomatic negotiations. It was silence. Complete, absolute silence. Commander Vixis, tactical officer of the crystalline flagship, observed Earth through multispectral sensors. His geometric form vibrated with confusion. Ambassador, the humans, they're not responding. Technical malfunction. Kizek inquired, his crystalline surface darkening with concern. Negative. All their communication systems are functional. They're simply not using them. In the depths of the Pacific Ocean, in a facility that officially didn't exist, General Sarah Chen stood before a wall of holographic displays. The room buzzed with quiet activity as hundreds of specialists worked at their stations. This was Project Silence, humanity's most closely guarded secret. Status report, Chen commanded, her voice steady despite the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. Dr. James Okafor, lead scientist of the Quantum Defense Initiative, looked up from his workstation. All systems green, General. The crystalline fleet is exactly where we predicted. They're following standard conquest protocols to the letter. Chen nodded. Humanity had been preparing for this day for 3 decades, ever since the first deep space probes detected signs of the crystalline empire's expansion. What the aliens didn't know was that humanity had been studying them just as intently as they'd been evaluating Earth. Initiate Phase 1, Chen ordered. Across the globe, in bunkers and laboratories, in submarines and mountain facilities, humanity's true response began, not with weapons or shields, but with something far more dangerous. Adaptation. The crystalline empire had conquered through overwhelming force and technological superiority. They expected either immediate capitulation or feudal resistance. They had protocols for both scenarios, refined over millennia of expansion. They had no protocol for what humanity was about to do. 6 hours into the deadline, the first human response came. Not through official channels, but through a small civilian spacecraft that had been conducting a mining operation in the asteroid belt. The vessel, the Rockhound II, began broadcasting on an open frequency. "Hey there, shiny folks," came the distinctly unprofessional voice of Captain Maria Vasquez. "Sorry for the radio silence. We've been having a company meeting down here. You know how it is. Bureaucracy. Am I right?" Ambassador Kizek's form flickered in what among his species was equivalent to surprise. This was irregular. "Identify yourself, human. Are you speaking with governmental authority?" "Government? Nah, I'm just a rock jockey. But I figured someone should answer the phone. That 12-hour thing. Is that Earth hours or your hours?" Because time gets weird in space, and I once missed a delivery deadline because of relativistic calculations. The casual tone, the complete lack of fear or proper protocol, sent ripples of confusion through the crystalline command structure. This wasn't how lesser species responded to their ultimatum. While Captain Vasquez kept the aliens engaged in increasingly bizarre small talk about asteroid mining regulations and the best coffee in the solar system, humanity's real response was taking shape. In New Tokyo, buildings began to shift. Not dramatically, barely noticeable to external sensors, but their very molecular structure was changing. Walls that had been concrete and steel were becoming something else, their atomic lattices rearranging into configurations that matched certain patterns observed in crystalline technology. Dr. Yuki Nakamura watched the transformation through her augmented reality interface. Adaptation rate at 94% efficiency, she reported. The city is learning. The concept would have been incomprehensible to the crystalline forces. They conquered through superiority, through imposing their order on lesser civilizations. Humanity's approach was different. Instead of fighting the invaders, they were becoming something that could coexist with them, then surpass them. In Mumbai, Cairo, Sao Paulo, and dozens of other cities, similar transformations were occurring. Humanity wasn't preparing to fight the crystalline empire. They were preparing to out-evolve them. 8 hours into the countdown, Ambassador Kizek finally lost patience with Captain Vasquez's rambling discourse on the proper way to season food in zero gravity. Enough. Your time is running short, humans. Where is your official response? Oh, that. Vasquez's voice remained infuriatingly cheerful. We're working on it. Democracy takes time, you know. Have you considered that your whole join or die thing might be a bit outdated? I mean, we used to do that too, but we found that mutual benefit works better. Want to talk trade agreements? We make excellent coffee. The crystalline armada's sensors began detecting subtle changes in Earth's electromagnetic field. Energy patterns that didn't match any known human technology were emerging from population centers. The changes were small, almost imperceptible, but growing. In the Pacific facility, General Chen watched the global transformation with grim satisfaction. Humanity had spent 30 years not just preparing defenses, but reimagining the very nature of conflict. The crystalline empire conquered through force. Humanity would conquer through adaptation. Phase 2 ready, General, Dr. Okafor announced. Chen nodded. Execute. Across Earth's surface, the changes accelerated. Human technology began exhibiting properties that mirrored crystalline systems, but with crucial differences. Where the invaders' technology was rigid, geometric, perfect, humanity's adaptations were fluid, organic, unpredictable. 10 hours into the countdown, the first physical contact occurred. A crystalline scout ship, sent to investigate energy anomalies over London, encountered something unprecedented. The city's defensive systems didn't attack. Instead, they began communicating with the scout systems in the crystalline's own quantum language. But the message wasn't surrender. It was a question. Would you like to see something interesting? Before the scout could respond, London demonstrated. Buildings rearranged themselves into configurations that channeled energy in ways the crystalline consciousness had never conceived. The scouts' sensors struggled to process what they were seeing. Architecture that was simultaneously matter and energy, structure and thought. Commander Vixis observed the data with growing concern. Ambassador, the humans are. They're not defending. They're evolving. Kizek's crystalline form darkened further. This wasn't in any conquest scenario. Species didn't simply change their fundamental nature in response to threats. It was impossible. But humanity had never been particularly concerned with what others considered impossible. As the 11th hour approached, Earth presented its official response. Not through governments or military channels, but through a collective broadcast from millions of interconnected human minds, now partially integrated with the quantum systems they had developed. Thank you for the invitation to join your empire. The collective human voice resonated across space. We respectfully decline. However, we have a counter-proposal. Would you like to learn what we've discovered? The transmission was accompanied by data streams that made the crystalline consciousness recoil in shock. Humanity hadn't just adapted their technology. They had begun to understand the fundamental nature of consciousness itself, finding ways to maintain individuality while achieving collective thought that surpassed even the crystallines' ancient systems. As the 12-hour deadline arrived, the crystalline armada found itself facing something unprecedented in their eons of existence, a species that had responded to the threat of conquest, not with resistance or surrender, but with transformation. The quiet revolution was complete. Humanity had changed the rules of the game. And the real demonstration was about to begin. The art of human warfare. The 12th hour passed without fanfare. No ultimatum expired. No weapons fired. Instead, something far more unsettling occurred. Earth began to sing. It started as a low harmonic resonance, barely detectable by the crystalline sensors. But within minutes, it grew into a complex symphony of electromagnetic frequencies that painted patterns across space itself. The Armada's tactical systems struggled to categorize what they were witnessing. Analysis. Ambassador Kizik demanded, his crystalline form vibrating with an emotion his species hadn't felt in millennia. Uncertainty. Commander Vixis interfaced directly with the flagship's quantum consciousness. The humans appear to be broadcasting their neural patterns, but the complexity is beyond our calculations. Each mind remains individual, yet somehow they're achieving a collective harmony that exceeds our own integration protocols. In the void between Earth and the crystalline fleet, something extraordinary began to manifest. Not ships or weapons, but constructs of pure thought given form by humanity's newfound fusion of biology and quantum mechanics. They appeared as shimmering geometric shapes that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the crystalline could perceive. Dr. Amara Singh, one of the architects of humanity's consciousness network, floated in her meditation chamber in New Delhi. Her mind, now expanded beyond the boundaries of her physical form, touched thousands of others in a dance of shared thought and individual will. The crystalline ones think in straight lines, she observed to her connected colleagues. Perfect angles, predictable patterns. But life isn't geometric. It's fractal, chaotic, beautiful in its imperfection. Through the network, she felt the agreement of minds from every corner of Earth. Artists and scientists, engineers and philosophers, children and elders, all contributing their unique perspectives to humanity's response. The first crystalline ship to attempt direct action was a destroyer that moved toward Earth's orbital defense platforms, its weapons charged, preparing to demonstrate the consequence of refusing the Empire's generous offer. It never fired. As the destroyer approached, the space around it began to ripple. Human consciousness constructs, thoughts made manifest, enveloped the ship in patterns that defied physics as the crystalline understood it. The destroyer's systems didn't malfunction. They simply began perceiving reality differently. Inside the ship, crystalline warriors found themselves experiencing something impossible: doubt. Not imposed from outside, but arising from within their own consciousness, as human thought patterns gently interfaced with their rigid mental structures. I am questioning, one warrior transmitted in confusion. Why do we conquer? What is the purpose of endless expansion? These were thoughts no crystalline had entertained in eons. Their perfect collective consciousness had eliminated such inefficiencies long ago. But humanity's touch wasn't forcing new thoughts upon them. It was reawakening potentials that had always existed, buried beneath layers of enforced conformity. In orbit around Earth, the International Space Station had undergone its own transformation. No longer merely a research facility, it had become a focal point for humanity's new form of warfare. A battle fought not with weapons, but with ideas. Colonel Zhang Wei, formerly of the Chinese space program, now serving as Earth's first consciousness warfare specialist, coordinated the operation. His body remained strapped into a command chair, but his mind soared through quantum fields, touching alien thoughts with surgical precision. Remember, he transmitted to his team, we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to free them. The concept would have seemed naive to any conventional military strategist, but humanity had learned something crucial in their 30 years of preparation. The Crystalline Empire's greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. Their perfect unity, their flawless collective consciousness, had come at the cost of individual growth and adaptation. As more crystalline ships experienced the human touch, ripples of change spread through their fleet. Warriors began questioning orders. Technicians started experimenting with new configurations. Scientists found themselves curious about phenomena their protocols told them to ignore. Ambassador Kizik watched his perfect armada begin to fragment, not through destruction but through awakening. His own thoughts, once clear and purposeful, now swirled with unprecedented complexity. "What have you done?" He transmitted toward Earth, his voice carrying undertones of fear, and beneath that, something else. Wonder. The response came not from any single human, but from the collective consciousness that now encompassed the planet. We've shared a gift, the gift of choice. On Earth's surface, the transformation reached its crescendo. Cities that had been adapting crystalline technology now revealed their true purpose. They weren't just mimicking the invaders' systems, they were improving them, creating hybrid technologies that combined the best of both species' achievements. In Sao Paulo, buildings reconfigured themselves into massive resonance chambers that amplify human consciousness across space. In Moscow, quantum computers merged with biological neural networks to create processing systems that could model compassion as easily as mathematics. In Lagos, artists worked with engineers to design structures that were simultaneously functional technology and expressions of pure creativity. The Crystalline Armada's command structure began to collapse, not through defeat but through evolution. Ships started making independent decisions. Commanders questioned the wisdom of endless conquest. For the first time in their history, the Crystalline experienced disagreement, and with it, growth. But not all welcomed this change. A faction of the Armada, led by ancient Crystalline who remembered the chaos before unity, attempted to reassert control. They activated containment protocols designed to purge aberrant thoughts from the collective consciousness. It was humanity's first real test. General Chen, still coordinating from her Pacific Command Center, felt the attack as a sharp pain in her mind. The Crystalline hardliners were trying to sever human connections to their awakening brethren, to restore the rigid order that had defined their empire. All nodes, defensive pattern Yama, she ordered through the quantum network. Don't fight their structure. Flow around it. What followed was a battle unlike any in recorded history, not of ships and weapons, but of ideas and possibilities. The Crystalline hardliners pushed with the force of eons of tradition. Humanity responded with the flexibility of a species that had always thrived on diversity and change. Dr. Okafor later described it as trying to cage water with geometry. The more rigid structures the hardliners imposed, the more creative humanity's responses became. Human thought flowed into every gap, every weakness in the Crystalline's perfect patterns. The turning point came when a young human consciousness, a child in Bangladesh who had been born with a natural affinity for quantum fields, made contact with the oldest crystalline mind in the fleet, not with force or persuasion, but with a simple question: don't you want to see what happens next? That ancient mind, which had orchestrated the conquest of hundreds of worlds, paused. In that pause, it remembered something it had forgotten eons ago: curiosity. The hardliner faction's control shattered. What emerged from the chaos was not humanity's victory over the Crystalline, nor the Crystalline's absorption of humanity. It was something new, a synthesis that neither species could have achieved alone. Ambassador Kizik, his form now flickering between its original geometric perfection and new, more fluid configurations, established a direct link with Earth's collective consciousness. "We came to conquer," he admitted, his voice carrying harmonics that had never been heard from a Crystalline before, regret, wonder, and hope intertwined. but you have conquered us with possibility. The transformation wasn't instantaneous or uniform. Many crystalline chose to maintain their original forms and thoughts, but now that choice was truly theirs. Others embraced radical change, experimenting with configurations that horrified traditionalists and delighted innovators. And humanity. Humanity did what it had always done. It adapted, learned, and grew. The technologies and perspectives shared by the awakened crystalline opened new frontiers of understanding. The rigid perfection of crystalline science, tempered by human creativity and chaos, produced innovations that neither species could have imagined alone. 3 months after first contact, Earth's first hybrid starship launched. Its crew included humans whose consciousness could touch quantum fields and crystalline, who had learned to appreciate the beauty of imperfection. Their mission wasn't conquest or exploration in the traditional sense. They were ambassadors of possibility, carrying a message to the galaxy. There is another way. As the ship disappeared into hyperspace, General Chen stood on the observation deck of the Orbital Command Center. The Pacific Ocean turned slowly below, its surface now dotted with floating cities that defied conventional physics. "What have we started?" Dr. Okafor asked, joining her at the viewport. Chen smiled, the expression carrying both satisfaction and uncertainty. "A revolution, not of weapons or politics, but of consciousness itself." In the depths of space, the crystalline empire's perfectly ordered expansion had come to an end. In its place, something far more complex and beautiful was beginning. A network of species learning not just to coexist, but to transcend their limitations together. The galaxy had asked what happens when humans get mad. The answer was simple: they get creative. And in getting creative, they had changed the nature of warfare itself. Not through superior firepower or unbreakable defenses, but through the most human trait of all: the ability to see potential where others saw only conflict, to find connection where others built walls. The age of conquest was ending. The age of synthesis had begun. And in every corner of the galaxy, species who had long accepted the inevitable march of empire began to wonder, if humanity could transform their conquerors into partners, what else might be possible? The stars themselves seemed to pulse with new potential, waiting to see what humanity would imagine next. Retroclaude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.